Welcome back, everybody, to Weekly Briefing. Now it is time for your favorite part of the show, the Political Roundtable. Well, on Tuesday, President Donald Trump marked his first 100 days in office with a speech in Macomb County, Michigan. He highlighted key accomplishments since taking office, including securing the border, onshoring investments, and rebalancing trade. The 47th president emphasized that this was only the beginning, saying he was just getting started. Take a listen.
They say 100-day start of any president in history, and everyone is saying it. We've just gotten started. You haven't even seen anything yet. It's all just kicking in. And week by week, we're ending illegal immigration. We're taking back our jobs and protecting our great American auto workers and all of our workers, frankly. We're protecting all of our workers.
So, Reagan, it looked like he was very much in campaign mode there for 100 days, caught up in the spirit of Macomb, Michigan. What did you make of his rally?
Well, totally. It felt like vintage Trump on the campaign trail. It felt like a campaign rally. He was bringing up advisors. He was bringing up super fans. He was really rallying the crowd. And I think it was pretty significant that he went back to this blue wall state, Michigan, that he was able to flip in the 2024 election to, of course, make immigration was a big focal point of this speech. It's probably the administration's greatest accomplishment in this 100 days, securing the border. He talked about those cultural wins that he got, banning men from women's sports, making that so that the federal government will only recognize two genders. And then, of course, I think he used the speech to also maybe give some reasoning or to get some messaging out there on his tariff plan. I think that largely Americans are still a little uneasy on the tariffs. They still haven't seen how it is going to impact them.
So is this kind of a sales job then, do you suppose?
I think that part of the speech, the tariff part, was a good opportunity for the president to get his message out there to the American people on why he's enacting these tariffs.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of tariffs, Paul, it was interesting. He also talked about some of the reshoring, onshoring that's going on, and I think we have a soundbite from him on that.
A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States and very, very quickly, moving very rapidly, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately.
It's interesting because that obviously was not in Macomb County, Michigan, but he has been talking about onshoring, reshoring. This is very much part of his first 100 days, something he's very proud of. Companies like NVIDIA, Johnson & Johnson, Toyota, SoftBank announcing investments since he took office, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the economic message was clear, both what he just said now and what's going on with his tariffs in terms of getting China and other countries to reduce their trade barriers. And there's also what's called non-tariff barriers, NTBs. And a lot of people don't focus on that. And that's also important to go after. But I think one thing that really resonated both at the rally and at the meeting yesterday with the cabinet was the immigration issue, where the illegal immigrants are down 99.99%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that
something
in
like
100 days, it's unbelievable. And keep in mind, this is just basically the first quarter. 100 days is about, 3 months. We've got 16 quarters to go here. So, there's a lot we can do in the next 3.5, 4 years.
Lee, it's interesting. Paul Kamenar just mentioned immigration. There is something related to immigration, is the Laken-Riley Act. A lot of the activity the first 100 days have been executive orders. Of course, those are somewhat ephemeral. They don't expire after the president leaves, but another president can remand them. But the Laken-Riley Act was actually passed by both houses of Congress, signed by the president. And he didn't make these remarks at Macomb County. He made them in the White House. But nevertheless, he seems to be very proud of that. So let's hear about that.
We will keep Laken's memory alive in our hearts forever, everyone's hearts. With today's action, her name will also live forever in the laws of our country. And this is a very important law. This is something that has brought Democrats and Republicans together. That's not easy to do. Laken did it. Laken did it. America will never, ever forget Laken Hope Riley.
It's interesting because this is one of the few pieces of legislation that Congress has actually passed that he has signed. something it seems that is significant, though, because it folds in nicely with his 100-day message, don't you suppose?
It does, and it's a sobering reminder of what can happen to the American people. And I think so many are grateful that we have an administration that is looking to take these illegal actors and remove them from our country. This, I think, for good reason, I agree with my panelists, securing the border, removing these criminals from our country is one of the president's top accomplishments so far. But you talk about what Congress has gotten done so far, and how about what they should do? I think now that we move into the next phase of the Trump presidency, extending President Trump's 2017 tax reform package, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
The big, beautiful bill.
That has to be at the top of the list. I think American businesses, families are just eagerly waiting for this to happen. They need that certainty. I think when that does happen, you're going to see the economic rocket ship take off for our country.
A prediction. We shall see. We shall see. Meanwhile, the Wisconsin Supreme Court has barred Judge Hannah Dugan from performing her duties after she allegedly assisted an illegal alien in evading ICE officials at a Milwaukee courthouse last week. In recent weeks, several judges have acted outside what the Trump administration considers their proper judicial authority in attempts to block the president's agenda. President Trump has said that he hopes the United States Supreme Court will rule in his favor so that his executive powers can be upheld. Take a listen.
No, it's terrible. What happened there is terrible. That could happen with a judge is so ashamed. And we have to bring our country back from all these criminals that Biden allowed to come in. These are world-class criminals and people that are insane, people from jails, murderers, drug addicts, drug dealers. And, we have a country. We have to be proud of our country.
Paul Kamenar, is this just another example of rogue judges in action?
This is a perfect example of it. I mean, it's unbelievable that here you had a judge who is having a trial for an illegal alien who was charged with domestic violence. And when she hears that the ICE agents are out in the hallway, she goes out and berates them. Let me see your warrant. They handed her the administrative warrant. She goes, oh, you need a judicial warrant. Go see the chief judge. So while they're seeing the chief judge, she goes back in her courtroom, gets the illegal alien's attorney, hey, come with me. She puts him out through the back door, and finally they leave the building, and ICE agents have to chase this guy down the block and arrest him. She was charged, and here's the 12-page complaint by the federal government against her for obstructing justice, which is clear, and also for harboring an illegal alien. She should be prosecuted to the fullest. This is not the first time, John. This happened again prior, 2019, with another state judge in Newton, Massachusetts. She was indicted by the first Trump administration, except the case took time to prosecute, and Biden came in office, and he says, I'm dropping the charges against this judge. So this judge is not going to get away with it this time.
It's interesting, Lee, because there are actually multiple witnesses saying that the judge was visibly upset, which may go to her motivation. It seems like this is kind of unusual. You have witnesses to rogue judge activities. What do you make of that?
Well, it was such a jarring scene to watch this judge be arrested. But what's more jarring and disturbing is that if these allegations are true, you have a judge who is completely undermining the rule of law and the Constitution. And so to think that a judge essentially did a block and tackle maneuver for an illegal immigrant to escape, law enforcement had to chase this guy down on foot to apprehend him. This is extremely disturbing. And so if these allegations are true, I think we need to take an even closer look at what some of these far-left activists are capable of when they get into these positions of power. And grateful, again, that we seem to have an administration, or we do have one, that is worried about restoring that rule of law. Because when we lose that, all bets are off, and the American people lose confidence in the system.
It's interesting, Reagan, because what Lee is saying is this is extremely disturbing. But do Democrats get that message? What do they do? I mean, are they going to be defending this judge in this situation? It seems like they already have, right?
Democrats are in a really vulnerable position right now. I mean, you have this, suspicion that they might oust the DNC chair. They got a lot of backlash for taking that trip to El Salvador to meet with an alleged MS-13 member, the Maryland man, the Maryland Father of the Year. And then you hear Hakeem Jeffries is now telling, Democrats behind the scenes, please don't take any more trips to El Salvador. We're a mess. And so I think that Democrats have no idea where to go. They're embracing the farthest left candidates their party has, AOC and Bernie Sanders. They're
travel on private jets.
Making all these stunts that are really getting no attention. And so will they back this? I don't know. It seems quite possible that they might, doesn't it?
We shall see. And it'll be interesting to watch. When we come back, Democrats hold a protest on the Capitol steps. Find out more when we return. Do not touch that dial. Welcome back to Weekly Briefing, everybody. Well, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Cory Booker took to the Capitol steps to contemplate their futures. It's the latest in a series of protests by Democrats against President Trump. Jeffries called Trump the Constitution framers' worst nightmare, saying he acts like a king. Take a listen.
And he said his greatest fear for the future of this country that was being built was that one day a demagogue might get elected and over a 4-year period of time try to turn into a tyrant. It was the framers' worst fear and nightmare. And now we're confronting someone who's acting like a king as opposed to trying to govern like the president.
So, Lee, it looked like a little bit of a sit-in there on the Capitol steps. Where is Bob Dylan when you need him?
I don't know, but I think Cory Booker, I think he's just riding high after winning the Iron Bladder Award for his marathon floor speech. So he's got this, air of confidence to him. He thinks he's going to do another stunt. But whenever I see Democrats doing something like this, you have to think that there's a lot of projecting going on. And when you talk about the framers' worst nightmare, our founding fathers, they never could have imagined a federal bureaucracy that has gotten so bloated that Washington has so much control over the 50 states. The framers never could have envisioned that. And that's why I'm so glad that the Trump administration is dismantling the Department of Education, sending that power back to the states. But another thing I think for these guys is, they're not talking at all about the $36 trillion in national debt. They're not talking about these entitlement programs that are just rife with waste, fraud, and abuse. And so I think it's going to fall on deaf ears. It's completely disingenuous.
Paul, it's interesting. Does this not perhaps shine a light on the fact that the Democrats seem to lack a vision, lack a message, lack a messenger, sitting on the steps of the Capitol? I'm not even sure a lot of people noticed, which is another facet of what's going on here. It just seems like they are literally kind of blowing in the wind, as Bob Dylan would say.
It looks like they were panhandling too over there, sitting on the steps. But at least they didn't sit on the House floor. Remember a few years ago, Nancy Pelosi had a sit-in on the House floor, which disrupted proceedings, which is illegal. And I think they got their message there. Well, we better go out on the public steps. But you're right. Their message is falling flat. It's not resonating. They're floundering around. Their message is blowing in the wind. They don't know where it is. And so I think we're going to see somebody try to come up. We don't know who, whether it's Newsom or somebody to try to take leadership here, but they're going nowhere fast.
Reagan, was this a good idea for these congressional leaders to do a sit-in on the Capitol steps, do you think?
Well, let's just talk about this. I'm a journalist. I'm a reporter. My job is to know essentially every single movement of all these politicians in Washington, D.C., especially those that are in resistance to President Trump. I had no idea. I had no clue that he was doing that. And, that's my job, to know when these things are happening. On Sunday, I took a walk by the Capitol and I wondered what is going on these steps. What are they? Who is this? What's going on? I had no idea until I got on the radio the next morning and I was doing a hit and the host told me, oh, these guys were over on the Capitol steps
So
doing
you're a
this
reporter,
sit-in.
you missed this huge scoop?
I don't think I missed anything. I think those two anecdotes
That's
speak
the
to what
point.
these
You
things are
didn't-
doing for the Democrats.
You didn't miss anything. That's the point. If this is their message and it didn't get out, and it doesn't seem to be getting traction. That's what I think is interesting about this demonstration. Nobody's talking about it. It doesn't seem to get traction, and they don't seem. It seems to underscore the fact that they seem to be messageless and rudderless. Don't you think?
Totally. Democrats are in disarray, and this is something I've been looking into in terms of my reporting, because one thing you heard at President Trump's rally is that the fight for 2026, the GOP sees that it is beginning now, and that if they want to, secure more Republican seats, they need to start campaigning now. And it's a prime opportunity with Democrats being in disarray. And so I would keep your eyes on the Daily Caller. We have some reporting coming out on how this whole dynamic is going to work and how that fight for 2026 is already unfolding.
A shameless plug from Reagan Reese there. Very good. Well, we shall see. Meanwhile, the United States Supreme Court heard oral arguments this week in a case over whether an Oklahoma religious charter school can be established. The school was backed by the state superintendent, but was blocked by the Oklahoma Supreme Court because the justices believed it violated both state and federal constitutions. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt said previously he stands behind the charter school and that there is precedent with the Supreme Court's previous rulings that allow for public funds to be used by religious institutions. Take a listen.
Well, first off, we just think this is more school choice, and I don't believe the government should get in the way of parents sending the kids to the school of their choice. And so this is a Catholic charter school that came about that said, hey, we want to set up another school in Oklahoma. We think it's a great idea. The United States Supreme Court said you cannot discriminate based on religion if we're going to be funding through a charter school system. So charter school board voted for this. We 100% stand beside it. And again, this is just more school choice. I want to be top 10 in education. And we believe by having more schools, more options, that's a good thing for parents.
So, Paul, this is interesting because this gets back to this church and state separation and federal funding and things like that. But it sounds familiar because I feel like the Supreme Court has opined on this issue in which, for instance, Catholic hospitals get federal funding. Is this not similar to that situation?
Well, it is similar, but it's pitting two provisions of the First Amendment against each other. The free exercise clause, as well as the establishment clause. You're allowed to exercise your religion how you want, and you can't be discriminated because of that. At the same time, the state cannot subsidize or sponsor religious schools. But, there's ways to do this. Well, first of all, Amy Coney Barrett recused herself from the case. Apparently she has a friend who was involved in this movement, et cetera. So I think what's going to happen, there's only 8 justices left. I think it's going to come down to a 4-4 ruling, which means that the lower court decision stands. Now, it can be brought up again. I've been, obviously in favor of non-discrimination, et cetera. But here, once you get the state involved in this kind of a thing, you get them to control what's happening there. And this could be a slippery slope. You could have, say, Muslims say, hey, I want to put up a madrasa charter school. Give me funds for that. And so the taxpayers are funding all this. But I think school choice is great. And the way I think it should be done, and has been done in many states, is vouchers. Give the parents a voucher saying, hey, you can take this amount of money that we would pay for your child to go to a public school and go to a Catholic school or a Jewish school.
To what extent is this simply a question of states' rights?
Oh, I think it's a huge question of states' rights. And I love what Governor Stitt said. He is focused on giving parents the maximum number of educational options to expand that educational freedom on behalf of students in his state. And to the point of vouchers or these education savings accounts or tax credit scholarship programs, Oklahoma is one of the 16 states that has that universal program. So this is part of their all of the above approach to empowering parents. This education revolution at the state level really took off during the pandemic. And what I love about it is that as Oklahoma and other states have implemented these programs, it really fosters competition. That's why just days ago you saw Texas approve the largest ever education savings account in the nation. 6 million Texas students are going to be eligible to utilize that. That is what the states are all about.
Now we're seeing Lee get really excited. Reagan, he mentions that about education options, talks about education options. That sounds a lot like competition. Is this simply an issue where they're afraid, maybe the schools, the teachers' unions, of more competition?
Well, when you look at school choice, that is typically kind of the argument to the opposition to school choice is this will take resources away from public schools and it's going to, hurt those institutions. But just this case in general, I used to cover education. Before I covered the White House, I was an education reporter. So back in 2022, I was covering this Oklahoma battle for this religious charter school. And, I think with the 2024 election, there was a ton of focus on both campaigns, on politicians, and education was this really hot button issue in 2020, 2021, 2022. And it's kind of fallen, I think, just from my perspective as a journalist, by the wayside. And immigration and the economy have taken the front row seat. And so with this case, I think there's a real opportunity for education to be front and center again. Mm-hmm. And I think that will be really empowering to the parents I used to talk to in my education reporting who are still looking for the Trump administration to right the wrongs of the Biden administration and still need work to be done beyond, abolishing the Department of Education.
Panelists, we've got about a minute left. It is time for our crystal ball question. Democrats have recently been showcasing their singing talents at protest. Here is a little clip.
And you must build this world from love. Ya-la-la-la-la, ya-la-la-la. And if we build this world from love.
Hard to listen to. Anyway, gaze into your crystal ball, please, and tell me which Democrat will be the next to audition for America's Got Talent with their vocals, and will they get the golden buzzer? Reagan Reese.
I would love for James Carville to audition for America's Got Talent, and if he auditioned and I was a judge, he would get the golden buzzer for me.
Wow. Paul Kennedy.
Well, I think AOC and the squad, they could become a quartet, but no one's buying their tunes, so they won't get the golden buzzer. They're going to get the gong. Get off the stage. Remember the Gong Show?
Of course,
John,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what I.
Wow, tough crowd. Lee.
Well, the new DNC vice chair, David Hogg, I think should take the microphone. He is emblematic of the Democrats in disarray, and I think the more that we can put him in the spotlight, the more entertaining it'll be to watch.
Interesting. We shall see. Well, that is all the time we have, panelists. Thank you for joining. When we return, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer on the committee's continued work to investigate Democrat campaign fundraising platform Act Blue as the DOJ kicks off their own investigation into that platform. Find out more when we return. Do not touch that dial.